everybody. So in this video, we're going to be having a look at how the different countries reacted to Hitler, and we're going to have a look at the different pacts that he signed and who he signed alliances with, and how that meant that his situation in the 1930s could progress, and how he was able to carry on defying the Treaty of Versailles because different countries did let him, and these agreements helped him to form alliances and therefore build up his power. We're going to talk about the Rome-Berlin Axis and the Anti-Comintern Pact. So let's have a look then at what the different acts were. We're going to keep track of this with a little table. So we're going to have a look at the date. We're going to have a look at what the pact actually was for each of them, and then also who was involved. Okay, so who was involved? So who Hitler was allied to? So the first one, the potential alliance he can have with Britain. So this would be the British-German alliance, or the Anglo-German alliance, if one was to happen. We already know that Britain and Germany have a naval agreement at this point. They have an understanding that Germany is able to build up their navy to 35% of the British navy, which was directly against the Treaty of Versailles, but Britain at this point thought, well, the Treaty of Versailles was a bit harsh on Germany, we'll let them build up to that capacity. So Hitler does have reasons to be wanting an alliance with Britain. There are certain things about Britain that he does admire, one of which being their traditions and values. So Britain does have a lot of traditions. It's obviously got at this point a very big empire. Its traditions, its patriarchy, its imperialism, its monarchy as well. So it says here Hitler admired the British monarchy. There were a lot of things that I think Hitler wanted to replicate in Germany that he saw in Britain. So he was very keen to become allies, and in 1936 he suggested a non-aggression pact that would last for 25 years. Now, hopefully from your contextual knowledge, you should know that that didn't happen, because 3 years later we were at war. But he wanted them to agree not to fight. He wanted basically them to be on the same, well, not necessarily on the same side, but not attack each other. So some British politicians wanted to cooperate with Hitler, one of which being, which we'll come on to when we have a look at appeasement, Chamberlain, who was Britain's Prime Minister at this time. To avoid or postpone a war, they didn't want a war, they weren't ready for war this close to the First World War, but because they needed time to rearm, raise funds, and to persuade the British public that they had to fight. But importantly, they had no plan to sign up to an official alliance. Now, remember, at this time, the Nazis are fully in charge here, and they are a fascist dictator government, very, very different to what we have in Britain. And Britain didn't trust Hitler that far at this time. So in the Locarno Treaty that we've already talked about, Britain had agreed to support Germany if France attacked, but this also said that they would support France if Germany were the aggressors. Okay, so they already had an agreement that said that this pact couldn't happen because it would have to override the first one. So after the remilitarization of the Rhineland, the British strengthened their agreement with France and Belgium. So Britain on this side, still firmly on the, at this time, still firmly on the side of their allies from the First World War, and still leaning towards helping France over helping Germany. So we don't have a pact there. There's nothing to add to our table. We already know about the Locarno treaties, so we're going to leave that there for now. So a second alliance, Spain. So Spain at this time is led by General Franco, who is another fascist dictator. Spain are not involved in the Second World War because they are actually in a very brutal civil war. in this time from 1936 to 1939. So let's have a look into that. So they've got a group of nationalist fascists led by Franco and the Democratic Republicans. And this is a war against the both of them. Let me close that window then. So that's a war against the both of them. Hitler and Mussolini sent troops and weapons to help Franco. Now, in the Spanish Civil War, a lot of countries in Europe had what was called a non-intervention pact. And they basically said, because this was Spain versus Spain, because it was a civil war and it didn't concern any other countries, and because no other European countries were ready to have another war, again, still recovering from the First World War, really suffering at this point from the Depression, they had a non-intervention pact and said that nobody's going to get involved. Actually, pretty much everybody got involved, because unofficially, people from all over Europe were called the International Brigades, and they went and fought on the sides of the Democrats just as volunteers to go and help their cause. And Mussolini and Hitler did get involved by sending weapons to Franco, and this was them really flexing their muscles, trying to test out their weapons for the Second World War, which is further proof that Hitler was always intent on war. So he tested new weapons such as his Luftwaffe. So remember, his Luftwaffe was the Air Force that he was not allowed according to the Treaty of Versailles, but still had. If Franco won, Hitler would have gained an ally, again, another fascist dictator, really positive for Hitler at this time. And the communist USSR, so Russia, was supporting Franco's enemies, and Hitler had sworn to destroy communism, which is something that this would have helped him to do. So if the Republicans won in Spain, Hitler feared that this would become a strong communist state in the West, and he was determined not to let this happen. So Franco was really pleased about this. He was delighted to have two new strong allies. By 1939, he was able to defeat the Republicans and became the dictator of Spain. And much of his victory was thanks to the support he received from the Nazis. So that's really positive there. Now, we don't have an official pact here, but we can say that in 1936, we've got Germany, Italy, and Spain working together in the Spanish Civil War, which is positive for Hitler for those reasons. Our next potential ally and potential alliance is Italy. So Italy, we've already spoken about. Now, in the last video, we looked at the Dollfuss affair. Sorry, in the video before that, we looked at the Dollfuss affair and how Mussolini had actually stopped Hitler from achieving Anschluss, which is union with Austria. Mussolini had stopped him from doing that because he was closer to the Austrian Chancellor Dollfuss in 1934. When Dollfuss is killed, Hitler and Mussolini see that they actually do have a lot in common and do start to work together. So by 1936, so 2 years later, things have changed, and Hitler and Mussolini made the Rome-Berlin Axis. So this isn't a formal agreement, they don't sign anything, but they said that they would work more closely together. This is more of a personal agreement. So Mussolini's relationship with Britain and France had suffered, and we know that this had suffered because of the Abyssinian crisis, which we covered a few videos ago. So working with Hitler meant that Mussolini was no longer isolated in Europe, and he could continue to build a new Roman Empire. So again, it's all about imperialism for him, safe in the knowledge that he had an ally if other countries declared war in retaliation. So again, now to our chart, we can add in 1936, we have the Rome-Berlin axis, and that is Germany and Italy again. Hitler actually models a lot of his dictatorship on Mussolini, so they do have that kinship in their fascist dictator roots. Okay, so another potential ally here, we've got Japan. So 1905, we had the Russo-Japanese War, and there was still rivalry and hatred. And remember, Hitler wanted to befriend anybody, ironically, when we come to the Nazi-Soviet pact, who was against the Russians, the communists. So on 25th of November 1936, Germany and Japan signed the Anti-Comintern Pact. So an agreement that they would work together against communism, which was later joined by Mussolini. So by 1936, Japan had invaded much of China, which we know because of the Manchurian crisis. So we can see how this is all starting to link together now. So Hitler agreed to this pact with Japan, and Japan hoped that China would feel threatened and surrender. So again, it's a strong year, this, for Hitler and his international affairs. So in 1936, we've got the Anti-Comintern Pact, and that involves Germany, Japan, and later Italy. And then finally, we have Italy and Japan together. So Italy, Japan and Germany enter talks to agree a triple alliance between them. However, they could not agree the focus of it. So they are on the same page, we know, because we've just seen them all form the Anti-Comintern Pact. So Japan wants to focus on destroying the USSR, while Mussolini wanted it to be a pact against Britain and France. Remember, he's fallen out with them after the Abyssinian crisis. So Japan was not involved in the first pact on the 22nd of May 1939. However, we do have a formal name of this agreement, so it's not just a friendship agreement, a personal agreement, this one. The formal agreement was the Pact of Friendship and Alliance. That's a lovely name, that, isn't it? Between Germany and Italy. However, Mussolini nicknamed it the Pact of Steel. So their armies would work together in any way that war broke out. Having Hitler on his side was definitely an advantage for Mussolini, especially since his relationship with Britain and France was declining. So Japan does join the Pact of Steel in 1940, making the three allies in the Second World War. So again, we've got another one again here in 1939. Use the shorter name, use the Pact of Steel. Quicker to write in an exam. And again, that's Germany, Japan, and Italy. So we can see that this is really helping to strengthen Hitler. Now, what's important about the German army at this time is even by 1936, they aren't strong enough to have a full-blown war. So Hitler does need these allies to help him when war does come. By 1939, their production is much higher, but it is still important for him that he has got that support. Okay, so this is a poster that we're just going to have a look at, because this paper is focused a lot around sources and source analysis. Sometimes cartoons, sometimes posters, sometimes written ones. So this is a poster by John Hartfield, who is a German communist who made photo montages, which are a mixture of photographs and paintings, that criticised the Nazis. Okay, now German communist at this time is a little bit of an oxymoron. Communism is banned in Germany. You can get sent to a concentration camp for being a communist. So this man obviously was incredibly brave. So the poster shows the bombing of the Spanish town of Guernica, which was heavily bombed in the Spanish Civil War by German planes. Many civilians were killed and the town was devastated. The text reads, "This is the Heil they bring." And this it refers to the salute that the Nazis, that's misspelled there, the Nazis gave. So this is obviously massively critical of the German regime at this time. And when you're having a look at sources and when you're revising, a really good way to revise is to write your own exam questions. And remember that the first one on this paper is the 4-mark. How do you know? So a question for this one could be, source A is critical of the German involvement in, I'm just going to abbreviate it for speed. Oh, Spanish Civil War. How do you know? Okay, that's the general gist of the question, and that would be 4 marks. So then you would find things in there in the provenance. So you could say it's created by German communists, therefore they're going to be against the Nazi involvement, or you can pick out specific parts from the actual source itself. Okay, so I hope that's been useful for you. Please, if you haven't already, go back and have a look at other videos in this series, and then we're going to carry on in the next one on our road to World War II. So thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video.